UFC is back with a rematch that nobody asked for in a venue that definitely nobody asked for, the UFC APEX. Doesn't mean we can't find some good lines on it, though. Let's get into it. First fight of the night, we got Toshiomi Kazama taking on Charalampos Grigoriou. So Kazama's 10-4. He did win a UFC road to UFC fight, but he is 0-2 currently in the actual UFC. Grigoriou is 8-4, one on Contender Series, but is also winless in the UFC at 0-1. Kazama has lost 3 of his last 5, and all 3 of those losses did come by knockout. Grigoriou has won 4 of his last 5, and all 4 of those wins came by knockout. Kazama's 27, Grigoriou is 32. I'm riding with Grigoriou here, money line minus 200. Gonna parlay it. I'll get to that later. He comes from a good team. Got a rep Long Island here, Saralongo. Most of his wins are by knockout, and Kazama's chinny, so this could be a perfect stylistic matchup for him. I like him to get the job done. Looking for anything else to take? Kind of just alluded to it. Grigoriou KO. It's plus 105 right now. 6 of his 8 wins have come by KO, and Kazama's been KO'd in 3 of his last 4, including 2 in a row. The over 1.5 is a parlay piece. It's minus 135. Grigoriou's hit it in 8 of his 12 pro fights. Kazama's only hit it in 5 of his 14 pro fights, but that's still good enough for 50% combined if you want to take a flyer on that. Next fight of the night, we got Yana Santos, aka Yana Kunitskaya, taking on Chelsea Chandler. So Santos is 14-8 with 1 no contest. That's 4-5 in the UFC. Chandler is 6-2. That's 2-1 in the UFC. Santos has won 2 of her last 5, but she's lost 3 in a row. Chandler has won 4 of her last 5, and Santos is 34 years old. Chandler is 30 years old. Again, I'm taking the over 2.5 here. It's minus 324. Hefty price. Gonna parlay it, obviously. But Yana's hit it in 4 of her last 5 fights, and Chelsea's hit it in 5 of her 8 career fights. So definitely a solid chance. Also, women's bantamweight in general, the over 2.5, usually the play. Looking for anything else to take? How about Chandler moneyline, man? She's plus 120 right now. It's women's bantamweight. I just mentioned anything can happen. Yana's winless in the last 3 years, and Chelsea has 3 wins in the amount of time that Yana has not won a fight. But if you want to go with the favorite, take Yana by decision. It's minus 120. You'd have to parlay it. But she's fought the better competition. Her 3-fight losing streak did come to top 8 women's bantamweights. Chelsea's currently ranked number 14, so big gap there. 6 of her 14 wins have come by decision, and both of Chandler's career losses were by decision. So worth a shot. Next fight of the night, we got Damon Jackson taking on Jose Mariscal, aka Chepe Mariscal. Jackson, he's 23-6-1 with 1 no contest. This is his second stint in the UFC. He had the weirdest first run ever in the UFC. He went 0-1-1 with 1 no contest. So he had a loss, a draw, and a no contest. That was back in 2014 through 2016, got cut, came back in 2020, and he's gone 6-3 in this new stint. So he's 6-4-1 with 1 no contest overall in the UFC. Chepe, he's 16-6 with 1 no contest. That's 3-0 in the UFC, and all 6 career losses came on the regionals, but 5 of those 6 losses were to future UFC fighters. So he had a tough run from the start, man. Jackson has won 3 of his last 5. Chepe's won 6 in a row, and 4 of them by knockout. It'll be Damon Jackson's birthday this week, so he'll be 36 on fight night, and Chepe is 31. I'm going to take the over 1.5 here. It's minus 225. I'm parlaying it with Grigoriou money line from before, and that gets us plus 117. Really like the value on that. 8 of Jackson's 12 UFC fights have hit the over 1.5, and all 3 of Chepe's UFC fights have hit the over 1.5. So seems pretty safe. Looking for anything else to take? I mean, you got to ride with Chepe here, right? He's minus 210, so you have to parlay him, but for reasons I've already alluded to, man, he's won 6 in a row. He's undefeated in the UFC. Jackson's going to be 36. He's lost 2 of his last 3, and he was KO'd in one of those losses. So just feels like Chepe can get it done in more ways than one. But maybe you want to go with Damon Jackson here, man. He's a fat dog, plus 195. He is a Division I All-American wrestler, or he was in college. That's Chepe's weakness, dude. Chepe's lost to notably good wrestlers in Gregor Gillespie, Bryce Mitchell. Jackson has 4 times the amount of UFC fights as him as well. Granted, he only has 3 versus 12, but still. Also, the under 2.5, dude. It's plus 139. 24 of Jackson's 31 career fights have hit it, and 12 of Chepe's 23 career fights have hit it. That's 67% of their combined fights have hit the under 2.5, and they're giving it to you at plus money. Next fight of the night, we got Danny Barlow taking on Nikolay Veretennikov. So Barlow is 8-0. That's 1-0 in the UFC. Nikolay is 12-4. This will be his UFC debut. He did lose on Contender Series back in 2021, but he has won 3 fights in a row since then. Barlow is obviously undefeated, so he's won 8 in a row, 6 of those coming by finish. Nikolay has won 11 of his last 12, and that lone loss, already mentioned, came on Contender Series to Michael Morales. Barlow is 29. Nikolay is 34. I'm going to take the over 1.5 here. It's minus 175, and I'm going to parlay it with the over 2.5 in Santos Chandler. That gets us plus 106. It's a little risky. Barlow's only hit it 3 times in his 8 pro fights, but his lone UFC win did hit the over 1.5, excuse me. And 8 of Nikolay's 16 pro fights have hit it, so 50%. So I'm taking a chance with that. Throw it in the parlay. Looking for anything else to take. Barlow by KO, plus 115. 5 of his 8 wins have come by KO. That's 63%. And Nikolay has been KO'd before. But if you think it's going to go long, like I kind of do, Barlow by decision is plus 185. 2 of his career wins have come by decision, which obviously isn't a lot. But Nikolay hasn't been finished in 10 years. And I just mentioned he lost the unanimous decision to Michael Morales in Contender Series. And Michael Morales can thump, dude. So if anyone's going to knock him out, would have been Michael Morales, I feel like. Co-main event, we got Chris Gutierrez taking on Quang Lee. El Guapo is 26-2. That is 8-3-1 in the UFC. Lee is 8-0. 7 of those fights were in LFA. This will be his UFC debut. He's taking the fight on 4 days' notice, but he was in camp for a Contender Series bout in September, so he's probably ready to go. Gutierrez has won 3 of his last 5. Both of those losses did come to ranked opponents. Lee is undefeated, so obviously won 8 in a row, 5 of those coming by finish. Gutierrez is 33. Lee is 32. Currently no lines available on this fight. They literally just announced it today. We're sitting on Tuesday right now. So don't really know what's going to be available plus money here, but here's a few things you could take. Granted, either plus money or throw it in a parlay if it's minus money. The over 2.5, Gutierrez has hit it in 19 of his 28 pro fights. Lee has hit it in half of his pro fights. That's 64% combined. Gutierrez, money line, I like him here, dude. He's fought the better competition. He was ranked in the UFC. He has close to 4 times the amount of fights, and he's not taking the fight on 4 days' notice, even though he agreed to it on 4 days' notice. But, he was in camp. He was ready to fight this weekend, all that stuff. But, if he is a fat favorite, maybe you just take him by decision, make it plus money. 65% of his career fights have gone the distance, and 5 of his 8 UFC wins have come by decision. Main event, as I mentioned, the rematch nobody asked for, Marcin Tybura versus Serghei Spivac 2. Tybura is 25-8. That's 12-7 in the UFC. Spivac is 16-4. That is 7-4 in the UFC. Their first fight was back in February of 2020. Tybura did win a unanimous decision. Tybura has also won 3 of his last 5. Both of those losses came to the interim champ, Tom Aspinall, and number 3 ranked Alexander Volkov. Spivac's also won 3 of his last 5, and both of his losses also came to Tom Aspinall, interim champ, and number 2 ranked Cyril Gane. Tybura is 38 years old. Spivac still only 29 years old. At heavyweight, he's got a lot of time left. I'm going to ride with Marcin Tybura, though. Plus 130 they're giving you at. He has won 8 of his last 10 fights. He's got more wins over ranked opponents, and he already won their first fight. I'll take that all day. You guys are looking for anything else to take? I like this one a lot, too. Fight NKO. It's plus 100 right now. Only 36% of Tybura's wins are by KO, but he's been KO'd in 5 of his 8 career losses. 44% of Spivac's wins have come by KO, but he's been KO'd in 3 of his 4 losses. Also, both of them were KO'd in their last loss. Again, that is plus 100. The over-under set at 3.5. We don't really have any stats on that because most of their fights were scheduled for 3 rounds. But 7 of Tybura's 19 UFC fights have hit the under 2.5. and they're giving you the 2.5 at plus money. Spivac, 8 of his 11 UFC fights have hit it.
I'm worth 100,000 like Woodrow. When a ball call me Wilson, going overboard at the Hilton.